He walked in, he had this big old heart, what a heart's supposed to look like, with the stuff you could peel off to explain. So I kind of knew something was wrong.
Christopher Hirschfield is the head coach here at East Paulding High School and has been for the past year. Coach Hirschfield's career started out in Huntsville, Alabama at Madison Academy, where his team won 3 state championships. He then moved to Georgia, where he was the offensive coordinator at Walton High School. But this wasn't the goal. Deep down, he wanted to be a head coach.
Really knew I wanted to be a head coach at that point, and this opportunity came knocking. I felt like I couldn't turn it away.
From the team to the administration to the facilities, East had everything it needed to be successful. The team just lacked drive.
Getting here and starting the culture change, that was the first thing we really had to do, was change the culture, the work ethic, what we were trying to do, because our talent, our numbers are here. We just had to develop that skill. The players are starting to hold each other accountable. And once you get that going, you've got a chance, because the coaches can't want it more than the players.
Yeah.
And they're pretty hungry to prove something right now.
Tell me about Mason and his initial health problems.
So Mason was born, he was our first son. He was born in 2015 on January 2nd. Born healthy, nothing wrong at that point. We had no idea what was going on with him.
Mason has always been on the lower 5% scale of height and weight. As first-time parents, Coach Hirschfield and his wife didn't know why.
Throughout time, he was always in the hospital sick. We got so many times bronchitis and pneumonia. It was every other week. The first week we moved to Athens, Georgia, we had to find a pediatrician. So we went in to see him, and he listened to Mason's heart just one time for 5 seconds on the monitor, and he just looked at us with a little bit of concern. And I just said, what's going on? And he said, you need to go to Sibley Heart Center. I hear a big whooshing in his heart, which is called a murmur.
After an echo at Sibley Heart Center, Mason was diagnosed with ASD. ASD, or atrial septal defect, is a heart condition where there is a hole in the septum wall that creates a leak in the red blood and blue blood chambers in the heart, causing oxygen-rich blood and oxygen-poor blood to mix.
His body was getting deoxygenated blood, basically, which explained why he was sick, because he wasn't getting the nutrients, and explains why he's a little bit on the shorter scale.
There is a 0.001% chance that a child is born with ASD. Mason is a part of that 0.001%.
How did that feel as a parent, your first child having a heart disease?
You didn't really feel it. You were just kind of numb. You didn't know what to feel right at the moment. It was scary. I kind of went into a little bit of shock.
Yeah.
Just staring at the doctor as he's talking about what we have to do, and I didn't really understand it all, because he's explained to me that he needs surgery, and he needs it now, within the next 2 to 3 months.
They couldn't take any risks, so they scheduled the next surgery for January 17th, 4 months later.
Was Mason old enough at this time to understand what was going on?
No, not at all. Very clueless. No, he's just 2 years old. We got the surgery 2 weeks after his 2nd birthday.
Are you sure you don't remember anything about your surgeries? I literally can't remember a thing.
You have any crazy dreams?
When I went in, I felt brave.
Good.
You were brave.
I felt brave.
How did that first surgery go?
It was depends who you ask. For me and his mother and our family, it was awful. The weeks leading up to it, you knew it was coming, but the day leading up to it, the last night leading up to it, it was just still the worst feeling that I've ever had, was having to hand off your kid for open heart surgery. So if you ask Mason, he's clueless. He went into surgery, obviously came out. To take a look at him with all that stuff on, the pictures, it was hard, extremely hard.
Guess what?
What?
I was walking.
Wow.
I mean, it's the 2nd, 3rd day, and they're up, and you're chasing them, trying to get them to stop.
The septal repair device sits between the red and blue cell chambers. In the healing process, the cell membrane grows back and there's a 10% chance it will grow back enough to disturb heart function. Mason is a part of that 10%.
And to keep it short, once it gets to 70% blockage, you have to get the surgery done. Once it starts growing, it doesn't stop. And so when we first went in and it was 10 to 15%, the doctor had to inform us, this is how this works. And so it was just kind of like putting a pin in a balloon. We realized at some point we were going to have another surgery down the road. We were just going to have to see how long it took for that cell membrane to grow back.
Some adults that grew up with ASD are still having surgeries every 2 to 4 years.
So just again, the wildest things with his situation, and it's a testament again still to him on how he just completely proceeds to carry through adverse situations. So we go back.
When Hirschfield accepted the job as head coach at East Paulding, Mason reached the 70% mark, meaning he needed to go in for surgery.
Yeah, so that was the wildest, week for sure. We had just really amped up our summer practice schedule. We're going to an OTA, which is basically where you go to a school, you play 4 or 5 other teams, and you scrimmage each other for a few hours. And it was the first one that I was going to get to really watch them play football during that time. Thankfully, I had the whole new coaching staff. They had finally just gotten there about a month later. And we were going to Etowah High School, which I scheduled my old stomping grounds, to go play an OTA the day after. And I had already told them there's 0 chance I'm going to be here, guys. And the coaching staff, you guys roll with this. I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be in there with Mason. He's just going to be a day out of recovery. I'm not leaving his side until I know he's okay. So I didn't have any expectations of being able to go. But one of the cool things was that the second surgery went a lot easier than the first. He came out looking so much better.
How long you guys going quick? How many nights do we stay there?
3.
3.
You're supposed to stay how many?
4.
5.
5. But how did I get out? Like 2 more days early.
Because you wanted to what? You wanted to go home. And you did so well. You recovered quickly.
He literally, you're supposed to be there for 5 days. He woke up the next day, not even, it was like early that next morning, and I want to go home. And the doctors were like, dude, no, you gotta hit this checklist. He was like, well, what is it? And so you gotta walk, you started moving the cord. They're like, no, Mason, wait. So literally we had to tell him, stay calm, stay in there. At that point, I knew he was good. So I scooted real quick just down the road to go just take a glimpse, at our team playing other teams at Etowah at the OTA. And they didn't know I was coming or anything. And as soon as I got there, it was a pretty cool experience. They all came up hugging me. They knew what was going on because they're all asking me how Mason's doing. There were coaches there at Etowah that coached me that knew about it. So it was comforting for me. And a huge relief because, again, once they get out of surgery on those, it's like the weight of the world's off your shoulders. And so it was almost jubilee.
You want to show them your superhero scar?
Cool. That's really cool.
You ever tell people you got attacked by a shark or something?
I told my sister that.
I know it'll work out. If I keep doing the right thing over and over again, it'll all work out in the end. And really then taking the job here, I wasn't going to take the job unless I felt good about where my family was, where my kids were. Am I being a good enough parent right now to be able to take on this extra responsibility? I could not have taken this job 2 years ago. I turned down a couple of jobs 2 years ago for the same reason. I wasn't in a place to do it. But I knew at this point, with where I was, the community I had, it takes a village, that it was time to fulfill my dream for my career. And a lot of people ask that. I could helicopter parent all I wanted for the rest of my life with Mason. And I'm still overly involved with him. I spend every second I can with him. But when people ask, is it hard during football season for those 1 or 2 days a week extra that you don't get to see them? So, I get to see them, 3 and 4 days a week. But on 1 or 2 of those days, I might see them for an hour right before bed. So what I explain to people is I would rather him see me chase my dreams so I can show him an example of how to do that. So I can show him an example of what having a passion is.
Within the span of 2 years, Coach Hirschfield was divorced. His son went through open heart surgery, and he inherited a team to head coach. How did he handle all the pressure?
Once we've gotten through a lot of the Mason stuff and realizing, these surgeries are going to happen. Look how quickly he bounces back. Look how it doesn't kill his spirit the way he still is. That taught me, but it teaches us, you can get through things. Like Mason's taught me so much with his life. Learning how to be a single parent, just getting through it. And I explain it, one of our big core values that I learned years ago at Walton, and it's resonated with me, is just find a way. When you get caught in survival mode, you just do, and you really don't think about it. It's kind of like, the species of animals, they're always in survival mode. That's all they are. Constantly looking for food, constantly keeping care of their babies, all of that. And I think I found myself in survival mode, there for about 1.5 years or 2 years. And even when I look back at it, it's almost like I don't even remember being so down about it. I just got into the mode of, I'm going to do it the best I can. I now see being a father, knowing what he went through, knowing what it can be to try and nourish a child that may be going through something tough. You look at those kids a little bit different. I look at each one of my players a little bit different. I don't just get involved and hyper-focused on X's and O's. I don't just get hyper-focused on little things that, of course, matter. That's my job detail. But I do look at each individual, what's going on in their life maybe, or when they go through some hard times, you got to be there for them.
Mason is now 8 years old and happily recovered from his last surgery. He hasn't lost his spirit. After all he's been through, just like his dad, he found a way.
I'm just going to say it.
Yeah, just tell the camera.
Okay. What I'm really hoping to, with being excited to be able to share this story, I think one of the bigger things is once you become a parent of a heart patient or somebody that's been through an illness or sickness, you want to get the word out. You want to be able to support or be there for a lot of other families that might be going through the same thing, or like I mentioned before, it's the first time they've been told that their son or daughter is going to have that. So what I'm excited for is Mason's story, to be able to help others. And I know he would think the same thing. And Mason knows that how proud I am of him and how much I love him. And I think there's a lot of people in this world that think the same about him.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.